Okay, so today we're going to be discussing break-even analysis. And break-even analysis is that magical time in a business's life when they go from being at a loss to making a profit. So let's look at that first. What is the break-even point? The break-even point is that point. It's the point that a company or a project or anything really goes from not having any money to having money. They've made exactly as much money as they've spent to that point. So assuming they're selling whatever they're selling at a profit, future items that they sell will contribute to their profit. It's where the total costs and the total sales are equal, more or less. It doesn't have to be precise, but it really does need to be close within the 1 unit area. Now, to get to the break-even point, we find it using something called a break-even analysis. And a break-even analysis is a math problem, is all it is. And we can present it a couple different ways, but think about this. You have someone who has 7 apples. They give someone else 2 apples. We could do an apple analysis to determine how many apples they have left. Or we could say 7 minus 2 is 5. So when we say break-even analysis, we're just talking about really a fairly simple math problem. And we're going to determine that point, and we're going to do it both mathematically and graphically so that you can present it in a number of ways. When you're presenting information to other people, some people can follow math, some people have a harder time, so if you can make them a picture, that oftentimes helps. Okay, we're going to need some abbreviations if we're going to be dealing with all of this stuff. The first abbreviation we need is N. N is the number of units that we're going to produce. It's whatever product we have, N is the number that we produced. PPU will be our price per unit. That is how much we're selling it for, whatever it is. Revenue, or R, will be the amount of money we make. Now, it seems perfectly logical that we take the price we're selling something at and multiply the number of them that we sell, and that turns into our revenue figure. And we're going to need our costs. Our total cost is represented by TC, and our total cost is made of 2 parts, variable costs and fixed costs. Variable costs are all the costs associated with a specific instance of a product. So a specific t-shirt, a specific bottle of water. The costs that go into that are variable costs. This shirt that I'm wearing, the material in this shirt that I'm wearing, the sewing that made this shirt come together, the embroidery and the thread that are in the badge on the shirt, those are part of the variable costs. The fixed costs are other stuff. The fixed costs are the cost for the factory where this was built in, where this shirt was built, the cost of the sewing machine, the cost of maybe salespeople and stuff that went into selling this shirt. Those are all the fixed costs. You take your fixed costs and your variable costs, you add them together, and you get the total costs of whatever you've done. Okay, so moving on. Mathematically, we've said that revenue minus total cost needs to equal 0 or just a little bit more, less than 1 unit price more, in order for that to be our break-even unit. So we know that revenue is price per unit times number of units, and we know that total cost is all of our fixed costs plus our variable cost times the number of units we made. So we substitute those things in and we get a new formula that actually gives us N. And that is fixed costs divided by the price per unit minus variable cost. That's the formula for break-even. If we can do that formula, we can determine break-even, and we can get all the numbers we need. Let's do a mathematical example using a t-shirt business. Our t-shirt business is going to sell screen printed t-shirts. In order to do that, we need a screen printer. So our screen printer costs $300. That's our fixed cost. In a real business, there would be other fixed costs, but because this is an example and we don't want to do a month-long example of how to do break-even analysis, we're going to say all of our costs are in this screen printing unit, which makes screen printing possible. That's our fixed cost. And we're going to buy our shirts for $4.90 a piece. That's how much we're going to pay for them. And each time we screen print a shirt, we're going to use 10 cents worth of ink. So that's going to make our variable cost $5. We're going to sell the units for $20 a piece. Each shirt we sell, we're going to sell for $20. So that makes our price per unit equal to $20. And then the question is, how many shirts do we need to sell? Well, if we go back to the formula we looked at earlier, then we have our fixed cost divided by our price per unit minus our variable cost equals N. So N will then equal our fixed cost, which is 300, divided by our price per unit, 20, minus $5 costs, or N will be equal to 300 divided by 15, or what does that work out to? Quickly, 30. No, not 30, 20. Can't work too fast. N will equal 20. So what that says is our break-even point is 20 t-shirts. We have to sell 20 shirts, and then after that, the 21st shirt we sell, we will make money on. That's the whole concept of a break-even example, or of a break-even. Now, let's look at what that looks like in graphic form. So to graph a break-even, we'll make us a graph first. Make us a X and Y graph, and on the axes, more or less straight. In the bottom, we're going to put units sold. That is, did we sell 1 shirt, 2 shirts, 10 shirts, 20 shirts? And then on the vertical axis, or the y-axis, we're going to put sales. That's how much did we make? 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, whatever. That's how much did we make in total sales. Now the first thing we graph when we're graphing a break-even analysis is our fixed costs. And our fixed cost is super easy. We look, what were our fixed costs? $300. So we go up here to $300, and we make a line straight across. And we'll even go ahead and label that fixed cost so we know what it is. Now, after that, we need to figure out what our total costs are. Well, our total costs are this fixed cost plus $5 for every shirt we sell, because our variable cost is $5. So the first shirt is going to be $5 higher than 300. The second shirt will be $10 higher than 300, and so on and so forth. So our total cost will start on the axis, and it will go up by the amount of the variable cost per unit. So we'll draw that on here really quick. There we go. Now we only have one thing left to do, and that is graph the revenue. So the revenue for selling 0 shirts is $0. The revenue for selling 1 shirt is $20, because we're selling them for $20 a piece. So each time we go up 1 shirt, we go up $20. That's going to give us a line that's going to go up through our fixed cost and eventually up through our variable costs and tell us where we make a profit. So let's just put that line on there. We're not being too particular about graphing, but trying to get a general idea. So here, when we've sold this many shirts, we've covered our fixed costs, but not our variable shirts for all these other shirts we've sold. Here, we've covered all of our fixed costs and all of our variable costs. This is our break-even point. And we know from what we did earlier that that's 20 shirts, we said. So that number down here on this graph will be 20. That's how break-even analysis works. It's not a big, hairy, difficult thing. Now let's take a second and look at a professionally drawn graph and see that it's more or less like what we did. I mean, when we graph break-even, if we look at this graph, we'll notice the bottom says volume. That's our sales volume, and that's typically in number of units sold. Our vertical axis is labeled dollars. Then we have the fixed cost traveling horizontally across, because that cost stays the same no matter how many we sell. The next thing we see is the variable cost. They technically call it a variable cost curve, but it's almost always a straight line. Curves in geometry are lines for some weird reason. So the variable cost curve goes up and intersects the break-even point above the fixed cost line, where the sales line and the variable cost line intersect. And you'll notice that they shaded to the left of that red and to the right of that green, because in accounting nomenclature, when you're in the red, you're losing money. When you're in the black, you're making money, but money is green. So they made it green because they thought that would be awesome. And that's pretty much everything about break-even from a basic standpoint. Now, there are some other things we're going to cover in future videos. We're going to look at how you do break-even for multiple products. This works great for one product, but what if your company sells t-shirts and mugs and coats? Then what's your break-even? Not easy to figure out, but there are ways to do it, and we'll cover that in a future video. Thank you for your time.